anything to talk about it?
Dang, word travels fast.
Well, I mean, Roy just told me.
Yeah.
Hey, Ivan.
I was
Yeah.
glad that happened. Stuart messaged me and said that, yeah, you contacted him. I was glad because, he can help you.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, judging by what you were saying, I basically wanted to get his scoop on things. And yeah, it was cool. It was quite interesting. I think there wasn't like a whole lot he said in as far as like, in some type of psychotic break goes, but it was just kind of some words of caution, and he wanted to he kind of put things in perspective as like and went over a couple more of my dreams, and yeah, it was good. It was good.
Yeah, he's the one thing I notice about him is I was telling Roy, he if there's an elephant in the room, he mentions there's an elephant in the room. He's pretty blunt about confronting people. Say, Ivan, do you have a dream? I mean, we're kind of I know Tim has got a dream, and I'm going to put it in the chat. I would say the one thing about Charles, your dream, I just was talking with Roy about it, my wife. When we talk about death, first of all, in my opinion, I'm just saying, I think there's a huge amount of evidence, including I would just tell him a story about my mother, that we survived death. So when we're talking about death, we're talking about the end of the willful ego, and going on to the next, to being in service to the unconscious, So sometimes when in dreams, I think every time in dream, when our own death is mentioned, it means the death and the rebirth of a new life within us, And anyway, Roy, do you have any comments on that? I don't know. Yeah, and Ivan, if you have a dream, we can get at it too. Hi, Dawn. I'm going to put Tim's. Did you have any comments about that? What do you think about death?
Oh yeah, like you say, the unconscious acts like Jung says, death's nothing. I mean, it's not even worth discussing. It's like you say, it's just ego death, because who we really are, our story is just going on whether we're alive or dead. It goes on before we're born. It goes on after we're born. It's just a question of you got into your story. Are you into your story? Where the hell are you? Or that other place, wherever you're at, that's what dies. You don't need it anyway. Get back to the story.
Yeah. One of the most astonishing things that ever happened to me too was, how when someone dies and they're long, and if you're really closely connected with them, some people know that they died, that person, even though they hadn't been informed about it before. My wife's daughter conceived. She didn't. My wife had this dream that her daughter had a oven, and when it opened up, there was a baby there, And she told me the next day, I think that she conceived, that she'd been trying to conceive. And of course, we didn't hear anything for about 2 or 3 months, but she did conceive. So not only is there a resonance when someone dies that people can pick up in the collective unconscious, but here there was a resonance when an egg was fertilized. I mean, the soul came into life at that point, or whatever, at least entered something. I don't know, but it was pretty astonishing, because we didn't say anything, but when we heard, then we counted back the days. It was almost exactly that day that it happened.
Yeah, that stuff goes on all the time, but we're not really trained to pay attention to it.
No, and it's just the fact that people are so permeable. We're talking about permeable, and I've been trying to be permeable, you know, myself. You know, I really just, you know, am trying to do everything I can to take the blocks of my ego away when I'm doing the meditations, you know, and everything. But it's not easy.
Mm-mm.
That's, you have to be very ingenious about it. Well, Roy, you're really good at it. But
No, I'm not good at it.
yeah, well, yeah,
I try to deal with what's on my plate. I just try to, okay, this is in front of me. It's just for me. I'm supposed to deal with it. And so much of the stuff that I get from is from that. Because at least I'm not distracted. At least I'm dealing with something that the unconscious put on my plate, that I felt the universe put on my plate. So that gives me some connection. And I discover a lot of stuff that's really interesting that I wouldn't otherwise discover if I ignored that.
Charles is I think Charles and Dawn, you're very permeable in your dream life. I mean, the unconscious just speaks with such clarity. You know, I think well, Roy, you're too you're the same way. Well, Ivan, did you have a dream that you want to talk about?
I have two dreams I could share.
Yeah, sure.
They're
Let's
both
go.
they're weird though.
Oh,
I don't
that's
know.
okay. Don't worry about it.
I know most dreams
Who
are
knows if
normal.
they're weird? I always think dreams are weird, and then later they turn out to be revelations, you know.
Well, I guess I would say I think most dreams are kind of weird. I would say these dreams aren't quite PG. I usually try to share the more PG ones.
Oh, that's okay. You should see the one I just put in there with Tim. But, you know, remember, we're talking about the mythic world. So when something happens in the mythic world, even if it's somewhat graphic, we need to look at it as a mythical event, not something that would happen, you know, in the middle of a shopping mall or whatever, you know. But go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So this one's a kind of short one. It really struck me though. So I'm in Colorado Springs, which is a town, I don't know, it's probably like 2 hours away from me. It's very fundamentalist Christian, a lot of places. So I'm visiting a friend there in some large apartment building, and I arrive, and he is with a woman that's not like his girlfriend or something like that. Oh, sorry. And they're like miming having sex. They're not actually having sex. They're both fully clothed and about
They're
a foot apart
miming.
from each other, but they're miming having sex. Yeah.
Okay, so they're like just miming with each other. I mean, you know, isn't miming kind of a silent, like Marceau, or you mean that they're just pretending? They're like miming. You're saying means what do you think? Just going through the motions, but not actually doing it.
Yeah, so they're both fully clothed and they're like a foot apart from each other on their
Okay.
side, but they're pretending like they're having sex.
Well, yeah, that's pretty cool. I think that's interesting. Go ahead.
And then so she gets up and she goes to the bathroom and she comes out and she's slit her throat. But she's not dead and she doesn't seem to be panicked, but she's bleeding from her throat. And so they seem both kind of unbothered by this. But I'm going, well, we gotta go get an ambulance. And so I'm trying to call the ambulance from a cell phone in the apartment, but I can't get any signal. And so I leave the apartment, I'm walking around and I'm on the phone with the dispatcher and I'm trying to explain where I'm at, but I don't actually know where it is. So I can't give good directions. So I can't tell them where they need to go to help. And I'm asking around telling people there's an emergency and I need someone to just help give me some directions. And everyone seems disinterested and won't answer me. And so I kind of wandered for a while and that's when I woke up.
Yeah, well, I had a dream very similar to this one, where there was a fire and everybody outside my house is, you know, call the fire department, you know, and I just sit there and I can't dial the number, you know, I just can't dial it. So anyway, we'll get into that because, but let's start out with, we're in in Colorado Springs. That's a, sort of a fundamentalist Christian community. So, in your estimation, it's kind of a place where normally not a lot of weird stuff goes on, right? Or is that right?
Yeah, that's why I mentioned the fundamentalist
Yes.
Christian aspect of it. Just that's always what I think of when I think of
Yeah.
Colorado
So
Springs.
that it's a place where this normally wouldn't happen, and you're in a large apartment building. Now, do you know who owns the apartment?
No, it's like just like some bland apartment complex. I'm just visiting a friend there.
Okay, just visiting a friend at an unknown apartment complex. Now he is with a woman, not his girlfriend. So it's either an anonymous woman, or it is a it could be, it wasn't, was there any intimation that he just maybe picked this girl up somewhere?
Yeah, it seems she's a stranger of some sort. She might have
She's a
been
stranger to him somewhat.
Yeah, and she might have been a professional, but I wasn't
Yes.
sure in the dream.
Yeah, we're not clear about that. So, and then they start miming having sex. So, in other words, they are not actually doing a conjunctio of sexual activity. They are um, sort of doing it, but at a distance from each other. So that's kind of interesting. In other words, the male and the female are at a distance, going through the act of union, with the opposites. Okay. Now she gets up to go to the bathroom. So and when she comes out, she has casually slit her throat. Okay. So now this means that the feminine, it doesn't seem to be worse for the wearer because of it, really. Is she doesn't seem to be either alarmed, she's just bleeding, but is she's conscious and right?
Yeah, she seems to be conscious. Yeah,
Conscious and not in pain, or
I guess I wasn't certain what her feelings were at that
okay.
time in the dream. Just that I was looking at her bleeding from her throat.
Yes. So you are the of all the people in the dream, you seem to be the only one that's very concerned about this wound that the feminine received at her own hand. So let's just look at it this way. You got the unknown anima who is with possibly a shadow figure. This unknown anima and the shadow are not having sex, but they're sort of just doing somewhat like dirty dancing or something, but just not touching each other. The anima leaves, wounds herself, possibly fatally. She normally would have been, but it doesn't seem to injure her. So the injury to the feminine seems, the only one who seems to be wounded by it is the dream ego, you. I mean, she doesn't seem, now you're very alarmed by this, that the feminine, the anima, has wounded herself, apparently gravely. This would typically be a fatal wound, but so the dream ego is very alarmed by this. And it let's just see, they are both unconcerned. Is that what you said? Yeah. And then you have got to get an ambulance. You tried to call the ambulance. And then no matter what you do, you can't get someone to come to attend to the wounded feminine. So there is the feminine is wounded. The feminine appears to have wounded herself. The dream ego, who is her ego consciousness in the outer world, and she's the soul in the inner world, has wounded herself, apparently trying to get the attention, or did, at least maybe she wasn't trying, but she did get the attention of her counterpart in the outer world. So she might be saying, now, so first of all, the fact that she is having this relationship with the shadow, so, we learned this from Anna Marjula, that if we ignore the anima, it marries the shadow. Okay, so she's almost a little bit connected with the shadow. She goes away, she wounds herself. She seems to do it nonchalantly, but she gets a reaction, which is the one she wants or should want, is that the dream ego makes her an urgent concern. Okay, but no matter what the dream ego does, outside forces can't help her. Okay, there's no way to get hold. First of all, you described all the reasons your numbers didn't work. What were the obstacles to getting the outside forces to help her?
First, I couldn't get reception on the cell phone.
Okay.
Then when I left, I didn't know the address of the place I was at or how to give directions how to get there. And
Lost.
the dispatcher was just kind of also uninterested, like, well, why don't you know how to get there, sort of thing. And none of the other people that I would run into would speak to me or help me get an address or directions.
So there's 4 obstacles that that are stopping the dream ego from assisting the wounded anima. Okay, this is a very typical image in dreams. My wife had a dream like this. I've had dreams like this. That the okay, here's my wife's dream. The animus is she's hearing rumors that the animus is dying in the streets. She doesn't pay any attention to it. Okay, now this is kind of the opposite of you. She doesn't pay any attention to it. Okay, she finally, after so many people are telling her that, hey, this person who's related to you is dying in the streets, she finally says, well, I better go take a look. So she goes to take a look, and yeah, he's dying, but she has no way to get there. She can't find the way there. So this is similar to, hi Tim, this is similar to this dream, is that the dream ego, and really what's interesting about it too, see, the dream ego has been shocked in to Roy, why don't you start here? I've kind of maybe repeating myself.
No, I think it's what I'm understanding you saying is here we have another example where the shadow's contaminated with the anima, almost like they're setting up something for the dream ego, and it works because it gets the dream ego's attention. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the dream, as I see. That's what I hear you kind of saying. That's what I hear, and you're right on. I'm with you. Yeah.
Yeah, to shock the dream ego into paying attention to the anima, she slits her throat, but with seemingly no harm to herself, and then so now the dream ego is trying very desperately to get hold of someone to help her. No one can help. We don't get phone reception. We don't know what the address is. The dispatcher seems apathetic, and no one else will tell us where we are. So it's this situation where the dream ego can't get to the anima or to help her, you know, yet she needs help desperately. What help does she need? She needs our relatedness. She needs us to be intimately related. She is suffering because of our obliviousness to her living presence. She's alive. She's our soul. And yet we don't take her seriously. And so, you know, often when we see these dreams, which have a great trauma in them, nightmares, it's because this is what I didn't come up with this, but it's saying that the inner world is suffering because of you, and they want you to suffer like they are suffering. So they send you a dream like this to make you suffer like they're suffering. You know, I mean, they want to help you, but I'm not talking about you personally, Ivan. I'm talking about us, any one of us. The soul wants to have a relationship with us. We are so wrapped up in our outer world willfulness that we don't even know she exists. So she is suffering greatly. So the one time she is able to contact us is in dreams, when the ego finally shuts the hell up so she can give her side of the story. And she says, I'm wounded. You need to help me, you know, and I'm going to show you that you're unable to help me. You just are inept at helping me, but I'm wounded. I need your help, but you need to learn how to help me, you know, and how we really learn to help is not easy because, you know, we have to learn that she's really there. She's alive and she's real. And so if we knew that, let's just take it for argument's sake. Let's say that I could prove, or someone could prove to you scientifically, that there is a consciousness within you that you could have a relationship with that's not you and is alive, and there's no doubt about it. But the only way that you can have any contact with it is through this, what Jung called l'abasement de niveau mental. In other words, the ego needs to go into deep meditation to be able to contact her while awake. The other thing it can do is to dialogue with her through written dialogue. Or the other thing it can do is to take its dreams and just amplify them and draw them. Any one of those three things are paying honor and respect to the living. The reason our soul is not the same sex as us is because our ego is very conscious in its side of the gender world. So the unconscious side, just like our inferior function is the unconscious side, is the other gender, because we're unconscious of that gender. Charles, do you have any comments on it? Or then Tim, maybe you can kind of get the gist of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's so I personally think that the kind of fake sex, like the miming, like there's the physical distance, so there's no sensation and there's no feeling, and then, you know, the anima cuts her throat, and apparently from what Ivan described, it sounded like almost as if the sensation and feeling was dead in her too, because she's like, oh well, I don't freaking feel anything anymore. I could just cut my own throat and it wouldn't even matter. You know, she can't feel it from what he described. It's as if she can't even feel it. So I would almost like title this dream like the death of sensation, or the death of Eros or something. And it is like it looks like a cry for help from the unconscious, or from the anima. And yeah, please excuse my nephew in the background.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say it
But that's
almost
all I
sounded
got.
like sound effects of the woman
The
with the
cry for
slit
help.
throat. Yeah, that's what I said. But Charles, that is beautiful. That's what I say. You should be okay. The two things Charles said is first of all, the fake sex shows a lack of relatedness and sort of a lack of real feeling. I mean, that's what my wife always accuses me of, and I know it's true. If I have a shadow, it is that I'm always I don't live in the present moment with sometimes, and it's she feels it. So anyway, the fake sex, that is sort of a lack of relatedness. Then the fact that she cuts her throat and she also has no feeling or sensation, either one. Now, you're an intuitive thinker, right, Ivan? Yeah. Okay. So those are your two more unconscious functions, is feeling and sensation. And yet, um, so those are wounded. Uh, there's first the fake sex, and then I think you're a little more feeling function than that, though. You're pretty. You've got you have somewhat of a lyrical sense about you, I think. I mean, you're a musician for one thing, you know. So, but that I think that what Charles has hit on is this lack of sensation. There's in the fake sex, there's no sensation. In the fact of slitting the throat with no pain is a lack of sensation. So that's a great summary, Charles. Tim, did you have any comments about it? I mean, do you have the gist of it or not?
No, sorry,
That's
I was
fine.
late. I missed the dream.
Yeah, well, it's just real quick. He's in Colorado Springs. It's a conservative Christian community. He's visiting a friend there in a large unknown apartment complex. His friend is with a woman who's not his girlfriend. He sees them miming sex. In other words, they're having sex but not touching each other, going through the motions. And that was wonderful, Charles. That's a lack of sensation. She gets up to go to the bathroom. She comes out. She has slit her throat. Okay. But neither his friend or her seemed that concerned about it. But the dream ego is very concerned and is trying to get an ambulance. Can't get phone reception because his phone isn't getting reception. And when he finally does get phone reception, he doesn't know where he is. The dispatcher's apathetic about it. And everybody around him is unconcerned about it too. And so what was the last sentence of that, Ivan? Because your dream always have a good last sentence.
This one doesn't have a good last sentence. It was just I woke up when no one would help me get an address.
Yeah, when no one would help you. Okay. All right. Now, Ivan, do you have any observations about this dream that you have maybe now that you didn't have later or earlier?
Yeah, I think Charles really nailed it with there was no sensation in anything. Like everything was kind of pretend or had no feeling to it, but everyone was disinterested and unconcerned, which was, yeah, going through the motions.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's also the fact that if she is the anima, let's say, and she is our soul, she is showing us that she is wounded, and I want you to see I am wounded. I want you to see it physically. I'm psychologically wounded, but I want you to see that it's manifest on my throat.
Yeah,
And
there is a real sadness to it.
yes, she feels wounded by not just you, Ivan. This is every one of us. I mean, you know, Tim's been having a series of dreams like this where the anima feels neglected, misunderstood, not taken seriously, and because of that, she feels wounded. So, anyway, let's just sum up. If this was my dream, I mean, what I would think would be this is just kind of what all I just said is, and this has been a plague of my life too, and one I'm really trying to, this morning I had a, very interesting, I've been having a few rich sessions, but then I don't take them seriously. I mean, I just get these wonderful gifts, but I'm always too busy to do anything about them. And then I have 2 or 3 days of nothing happens in these daily meditations, and I grieve greatly. But then I'm thinking, why should you be grieving? You're not doing anything to honor these great gifts you were given. Until you actually make them your sacred myth, that they aren't transformational. They're just nothing happening. So, and that was one thing I was telling Roy too, is that I think one of the reasons I wouldn't be a good analyst is because I do think that the essential part of is honoring these dreams somehow, or somehow establishing a relationship. Whether I'm, those who can't do teach. But anyway, Roy, do you have any final comments about it? Or, I mean, Ivan, I think we're getting close. I think we might want to think about it, but for a night. Roy, what do you think?
The only thing I have to add, and Craig, you're really wonderful in the department of teaching and educating with your knowledge. I love it. The only thing I have to add is Ivan asked what qualities was the dream ego, what qualities of the dream ego was missing in the dream, to connect with the woman that you were concerned about. What qualities were missing? And if you can find those qualities in yourself and develop them, you'll get a lot more out of life. It'll really transform your life.
Yeah, go ahead, Tim. Now you've had a 40-year experience with the anima, so this somewhat resonates me with you. If you had this dream, I mean, what would you? Could you?
Well, it's actually very
describe?
similar to a lot of the dreams I've had, and I agree with Charles. It's being out of touch with the Eros side, and maybe it's easier for me to think about rituals for somebody else than it is for myself. But it seems like if I were in your position, I'd try to think of something physically to do to connect with the feminine and the feeling side. And I don't know if that's doing some kind of a connection with a real woman, or taking yourself on a kind of spa date, like, you know, going for a massage or a you know, a beautiful bubble bath or something like that. Something that would center your focus on your body and your sensation, and being in celebration of the feminine, which is always more connected to the sensual than we stupid men are.
Well, that is wonderful, Tim, because you brought up an aspect we really didn't consider. Well, I think Charles sort of hinted at it, but it might be saying that the only way that you can become permeable to the unconscious is to develop the sensate part of yourself. Now, in my own case, that meant coming down to the earth, getting my feet on the earth, on the ground, and also relating very, very much to the rooted world, you know, the rooted existence, the one that is, you know, absolute. You know, sensation means to be absolutely real, to be one who is, you know, knock on wood, it's there, you know, to live in reality. See, now I have been a person who's not lived in reality. Now I think Ivan, you're forced to live in reality by having what, two children at least, or yeah, yeah, and a wife. So that does give you a little more reality, sense of reality. But I think the psyche is asking a little more. And you know, when Tim was mentioning that, it just almost seems a sacrilege in this modern day life to ask anybody to do something with the inner world, you know, that makes a difference. You know, are you crazy? I mean, it's one thing to talk about this dream, but I'm not doing that shit. You know, I'm not going to take the inner world seriously. You know, I have sort of a dilettante relationship with it, but I'm not going to take it seriously. You know, and I think that it's very different. That's what is called a resistance. You know, I mean, we were talking about resistances last time, Roy. You know, that resistance is almost final. You know, but I think that this dream was so clear in its dramatic urgency. At least it got your dream ego to have a sense of urgency. You know, my anima takes that clock hand, moves it to midnight, and says, "It is time. It is highest time." And then another time she says, "God is trying to shake you in every way that you can be shaken." I mean, she's saying, "I just cut my throat." You know, now, you know, Bodhidharma, the one who brought Zen Buddhism to China, you know, he was just sitting in front of a wall, and he kept having a student come to him every day and wanting to be taught by him, but Bodhidharma just ignored him. And so finally, the student cuts off his arm and he presents it to Bodhidharma. And Bodhidharma turns to him and he says, "What do you want?" and the student says, "I want you to calm my soul." And he says, "Present your soul and I will calm it." And he says, "I can't find my soul." He says, "So you have nothing to calm." You know, I mean, it's just this act of, I mean, it sort of reminds me of this dream, you know, that the student wants to get Bodhidharma's attention, so cuts his arm off and gives it to him. So, you know, she wants your attention, and that's the only way she seems to be able to get it, even though it doesn't bother her. So there's two aspects to the dream. I think one is a relatedness not to the outer feminine, but to the mythical inner feminine. You know, that's a different relationship than the outer world, relating to the symbolism of the eternal feminine and the transformational feminine in the inner world. Now, that is not to be confused with the outer world. Okay, that's the one aspect. The other aspect, I think, is what Charles and Tim pointed out, that this is also that the door to that, making ourselves more permeable to that world, is through this sensation function. You know, like in my case, it was to descend to the earth, and there is a circle of dogs waiting for me as I'm descending to the earth. And one time I couldn't descend to the earth, and I look around and I'm just grasping for anything because I can't descend. And I take finally find a hand, and it's the hand of the anima, and she helps me to descend to the earth. You know, so that's kind of my sensation functions. Now, is anybody else here a sensate inferior or not? You are, Tim and Roy. Roy, you work with you do a lot with rooted things, don't you?
Why do you think I do it?
Why
Why do you think I'm into yoga? Why do you think I'm into gardening?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
I'd rather just be abstract and read books and daydream,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm into it because it's sensate.
Mm-hmm.
I believe sensate has to have a physical grounding. I mean, you have to be doing something physical. Now, if it's something physical that you have to have focus, you have to have focus on, like you have to have focus to grow things. It's educate, you know, it's not easy to grow a lot of things. It's just not, you just don't throw the seed in the ground and come back in 4 months and you're eating tomatoes. You have to focus. Yoga, you have to focus. To me, that's real sensation, doing something physical with focus.
What do you do, Tim? Do you have any? Do you feel that now my sensate functions are horrible? I mean, I can't repair anything. I get lost everywhere I go. Even when I'm going to a place, I go every day. You know, I mean, and I seem to not be too aware of what I'm doing when I eat. What do you do, Tim? I mean, as far as sensate function.
Well, I'm kind of like Roy. I kind of do a lot of different things to foster that. I do yoga. I do a certain amount of working out. I do a lot of things with my hands, building, and I don't have a plot to garden, but I have a few pots here and there that I can grow vegetables in and so forth. And I spend a lot of time with the art is often very, very sensual. You know, throwing colors around and pushing clay and stuff like that.
Yeah, doing something with your hands, definitely.
Yeah.
You know, is always said. Clay is wonderful. Ivan, you do you play do you have any other hobbies? Of course, you have. I think one thing too is that you have like a couple dogs. You know, right?
Yeah, I have dogs. I have guitars.
Yeah. Wow.
I do artwork.
That's all. Yeah, there you go. Well, at
Upside
least
down,
you're working on
I
it.
actually, yeah, I probably overcompensate for the sensate stuff. I do a lot of it because I kind of really need it. I haven't done a lot of it recently though, just because it's hard when you're in the house all the time.
Well, and I really do feel the heart longs for it. You know, it really does. This aspect. Charles, do you probably need to do some gardening or something? What do you we're doing a lot of walking, and I think you felt better when you walked, didn't you?
Yeah, I do a lot better when I can actually walk. But I mean, the weather here is at the point where I can walk again.
No.
But yeah, you know, the last freaking Myers-Briggs test I took, it said I was an introverted sensate, but I don't know.
Okay. Well,
I
that's
I
that.
yeah, I've gotten inconsistent results with
Yeah, I
those
don't think that
tests.
that's
So
true. I would say that you're. I mean, I think you would be more an introverted, intuitive thinker, or an introverted thinking intuitive. One of the two. I think you're probably closer to Ivan and me than you would be to introverted sensate. Emma Young was an introverted sensate, and compare that with an extroverted sensate. An extroverted sensate, when they throw a party, it's fabulous. There's gold and glitter everywhere, balloons and wonderful things everywhere, but it's all surface. Now, an introverted sensate has dramatic crescendos in the thing of ritual, you know, and it's the sensate is all in the not in surfaces but in depth. The sensate has a depth to it, and an introverted sensate like Emma Young, you very earthy, very earthy. So I don't know if you seem earthy, so I don't know.
you know, I did I'm somewhat forced to be a sensate because of my bodily condition. Um, I am forced to pay a lot of attention to my physical body.
Yeah, well, that helps. That
So
definitely
yeah,
helps. Sometimes if you're a sensate and you have a disease, that helps you be more aware of the sensate function. But anyway, Ivan, this is a dream of great urgency. And uh, could you put the other dreams you have in the chat or something? And we'll go to Tim's dream here, but at least we'll have yours on deck for the next time you come, because I would like to hear a couple more dreams. Tim did a drawing of this dream, and we might want to go over it because it's pretty good.
Yeah, sure. I
And
need
plus,
to write some of these out. So
yeah, if
I'll
you
write them
would,
out.
and just either email them to us or something, because I think it would be good to hear the dream before or after this one. I think it would just really put in perspective. Well, Tim, did you, that for this dream, to put that one in perspective?
This is actually the dream I shared last time, the weird one about people with acid sweat screaming.
Oh, yes, yes. If you
I'll send
could
you that
write
one.
that one down, because the acid, it was the acid sweat. Yeah.
Has the same idea about sensation and these people not feeling.
Yes,
So.
isn't that cool? Now, we wouldn't have gotten that without this dream. That the acid sweat related to the sensate function a little bit. I wouldn't have gotten that, but now it does make sense. Yeah. So, yeah, it would be helpful if you could put a couple of those in there, because I learned so much from these um, about functions, about the genders, and everything else. Let's look at Tim's dream. Go ahead, Tim. Do you want to just read it, and then we'll go into it?
Yeah, I'm calling this the crazy woman.
Yeah.
I have a male friend whose sister's been wandering the streets topless, almost certainly beyond reasoning. At one point, I'm talking to him, when she walks up the street, and I say, "Hey, isn't that your sister going to work?" She avoids both of us as we try to corral her. She's kind of flat-chested, so I'm thinking it's not as alarming as it would be if she was full-breasted. She's not coherent, so there's no talking to her. One point, she goes into somebody's yard and kind of hides in the bushes, and I walk around on the other side behind this picket fence. She's facing the other way. I put my hands on her shoulders, trying to comfort her. And I'm thinking, man, it's time to put her in an institution.
Now, this dream is almost, don't you think it has a lot of connection with, that was the paint or the sketch that he did. Did you see, everybody see that? Do you want me to put it up again? Let me put it up again. But don't you think this dream is very similar to the crazy woman at the Wild River? There's a little bit, but
Yeah.
let me just go through what some notes I took about it. Okay, and then so it's a male friend who has a sister. So the sister aspect is kind of interesting here. It's the sister of the shadow, or is it the sister of the helpful companion? And anyway, it is a feminine aspect that's related to a male figure in the dream. You know, of course, every sister probably has a brother, but this is one that we knew the brother, but not the sister. See, yet she comes around. Now, we're not sure it's a male friend. We don't know much about him, but I would
I feel like
assume,
he's a friend.
yes, he's a
Yeah.
helpful companion. You know, and so usually the male person is going to be either a helpful companion, the shadow, or the wise old man. You know, be one of those three. But I think this one is, I got the impression he's the helpful companion. Okay, but it's his sister. So it's almost as if it has a hermetic quality, you know, that there is a being here that's both masculine and feminine. He is male, and his sister side is also present, you know. Now, I don't know where to go with that, but it's just interesting that it's the sister. Okay. Because you don't often hear that an anima is a sister. So the fact that she is a sister is interesting. Now, she's been wandering the streets topless, almost certainly beyond reason. So this is the wild feminine. This is the feminine that is not constrained by the rules of outer the collective realm. She's the wild feminine, and she is her. Now the topless aspect, just as a general information, and by the way, I got this information from the Great Mother, is that the breasts and the hips represent the essential life force. So the reason that men, or the men in when they're seeing a female who is either very curvy or is you know, whose breasts are, now here's something really interesting too. I was just reading this morning about the veiled woman. Okay, you know, the veiled woman. Okay, this is the one who is hiding her life force and is retreating from the life force. Okay, and you know, there was a figure that Joseph Campbell said that no man has ever seen me unveiled, you know. But now this is not the veiled woman. This is a woman who is uninhibited and wild. And in the eyes of the masculine force, just like on the husbands in the crazy woman at the river dream, the masculine aspect thinks she's crazy, but she's just wild. She's just untamed, you know. Now, whether is she causing any problems? Well, maybe. So you're talking to a friend and she walks by and we ask him, isn't that your sister going to work? And I just keep getting this image of the sister, is it a mystical sister? Is it just somehow, anyway, she's, when a woman goes around topless, what she's really doing, she doesn't really care, but she does awaken male energy in her. It's a very strange situation when the female of the species needs to cover her upper body because it's too evocative to the other sex. So it needs to be hidden, because where else do you find this in the animal kingdom? That the feminine of the species needs to hide her sexuality because it's too powerful. So when she walks around with unclothed like that, her awakening power dissolves collective order. It's a dissolution. Her wild feminine is injuring the masculine world because it's just dissolving order, and it's making a man more animal-like. Okay, it's forcing him into more an instinctive, irrational condition where when she's clothed, he can maintain his rational stance more easily, But this one, it sort of dissolves his rational aspect. The feminine has the magic to dissolve our rationality, Um, I always tell I shouldn't say this out loud, but I tell my wife if she wants to shut me up, just flash me, I'll shut the hell up, But I mean, it just sort of dissolves that rationality of the man. I'm just doing some free association here, so I'm not saying I'm making sense. Okay, now she then avoids us. We're trying to corral her, but she avoids us. Now she's also flat-chested, so it's not as alarming. Now that's an interesting comment, and a very full-breasted woman, it would be more alarming, but a more elfin-like creature, it's not quite so alarming. I mean, she has an elfin-like quality. Now, Marie Louise von Franz used to say that the elfin-like woman was more attractive to most men for some reason, her boyish quality or something, that she knew a lot of men who were attracted to elfin-like women. But it's just interesting that if you were to walk out and see a very full-breasted woman topless, it's more alarming than seeing because it, I don't know. I mean, it just seems a very full-breasted woman is going to be even more disillusioning or dissolving of outer order. It's not her fault, but seems to be the case, and so the male conscious attitude thinks that the unfettered wild freedom of feminine energy that's put on display needs containment to maintain order and rationality. See, if the unfettered wildness of the and freedom of feminine energy is just displayed openly, it dissolves order, and the masculine conscious attitude says there must be order. So it is a real comment on the dream ego, and its focus is containing, restraining the instinctive wildness of the mysterious feminine energy. Now, in the eyes of male consciousness, she's incoherent. She doesn't, so you can't even talk to her. So that's pretty interesting too, that she's almost mute. Okay. She's not only, oblivious and wild. I mean, are you going to go ask the bushwomen of the Kalahari, hey, you better put your top on. This is unacceptable. She's going to look at you like you're nuts. What do you mean? I'm not doing that. I mean, so there's an aspect of where is it acceptable to be topless? Certainly not in modern day society. I mean, would the Kalahari Bushman man have to put his feminine presence in the insane asylum because she was walking around topless? No, he wouldn't do that. I mean, it's accepted. The wildness of the feminine form is not quite so alarming. Why is it alarming in the civilized societies? And it's not alarming in the more natural order. And why is the mask or the dream ego thinking that this thing that over here is very acceptable in more harmony with nature, where we live out of harmony with nature, it needs to be put in the insane asylum, and it's sort of mute. So it is kind of interesting. In harmony with nature, there's no problem with the woman being wild, at least displaying her feminine form without causing a riot, But in a world where it's not in harmony with nature, it's a scandal. It's all scandals, So let's see. She goes into the yard and hides behind a barrier in the rooted things, in the bushes. Before she hid in the flowing unconscious, near the flowing unconscious. Here she hides behind a barrier in the rooted things. And so it's her place, it's her sanctuary from male control. Now, this was exactly what the women in the other dream did to get away from the husband. Look for a sanctuary. Sanctuary is near the river. Here, looks for a sanctuary. She knows she's trying to be corralled. So she goes to the rooted things and hides in the rooted things. But the dream ego is very wily. It goes all the way around the barrier, comes over to the other side, and then starts searching through the rooted things, and then grabs her from behind and is going to put her in an institution. Now, anyway, that sort of describes the dream, and it's let's just hear what people think of as far as their interpretation of the dream. Roy, what do you think? I hope I wasn't too strong on that. I just was trying to just describe it. I'm not making any conclusions.
Yeah, pretty accurate.
What do you think, Roy?
Yeah, it's like the woman in the river dream, the crazy woman in the river dream that Tim was going to give up to the abusive husband, put in an institution. It's exactly same theme. It's almost like the dream to me is saying, "Oh, you can't deal with the real thing." What is the dream ego doing that you do? It can't deal with the real thing. That's what it's trying to show you, I believe. And we really need to be able to deal with the real thing. I mean, when are we going to do that?
Now, what do you think, Ivan, about this one?
The topless aspect of it is really interesting. It does seem to be saying something about gender in our society, right? That what is a perfectly natural, harmless thing generally speaking, is something she should be institutionalized for, right? Like we are so, and like, yeah, that's I'm still spinning on that. That was, I think, the most interesting part to me, that we immediately assume that she's crazy and incoherent. And maybe she is, but I don't think because of that.
And you know, is it our fault that we're more overcommitted to living in a society that's out of harmony with nature? You know, where this would be totally acceptable in any other realm. So who's crazy here? You know, really is one question. And it's just that we take so much for granted living out of harmony with nature that we don't know any other way. You know, what do you think, Charles? You've been hitting some home runs here.
I was gonna ask Tim what the specific wordage was of, like, was it she needs to be put in an institution or she needs to be institutionalized?
Well, that was just a thought.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think just this, of course, this dream is like an echo of the Crazy Woman River dream, and the fact that, you know, this other woman from the river dream, she was also to be, you know, put in a mental hospital or whatever. It's like, the thing that keeps coming to my mind is like that it has to be sterilized, and that I don't really know exactly how to put it, but that it's just that things need to be like, the feminine needs to be sterilized because it's just not going along with the program. And the dream sounds like, you know, I'm just going to go off the top of my head. I obviously, you know, I'm not a professional and I don't know Tim that well, but it sounds like the shadow of this person that dreams it would be kind of like a totalitarian kind of shadow, and very rigid, and just that like, I don't know what word to use other than sterilized, and that things need to be very contained, and that like nature must be contained, but, you know, nature of humankind, nature of, you know, specifically the feminine aspects of the psyche, just throwing kind of chains on it. And it's I don't know, I'm failing to really get my thoughts together.
It's being threatened by the bare expression of feminine energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where she's not really doing anything except wandering. She might be crazy, but we're alarmed because she's if it was a man walking around topless, no one would give a second thought. We'd be like, that's crazy, Jim, or whatever, right? But a woman walking around topless, suddenly it's threatening for some reason.
Yeah, what it
or
seems,
alarming, maybe not threatening, but alarming, right? It's
Alarming, because I think about like the mentally ill people that just wander the streets in big cities. They're always saying incoherent things. But if a woman takes off her shirt, all of a sudden, oh my God, we got to get her out of here. There's something that has been unleashed that is too powerful for us. I think that's it when you talked about the feminine life force. We can't be exposed to that.
it really does, in male consciousness, it represents the life force. And I think that what is being threatened, if you want to go on the threatening side, is what is being threatened is rational order. You know, that what's being threatened is rational order that is really out of sync with nature. You know, it's not in harmony with nature. Rational order cannot be in sync with nature. You know, I mean, a rational order is straight roads and you know, four corners and all that kind of stuff that you would never see in nature. You know, yeah, I think Young one time said the only time you see a straight line in nature is when a meteorite comes and hits the earth. You know, that everything else is serpentine. You know, but I think that what's happening in these dreams, Tim, and I think that Ivan kind of hit on it. And I don't know, and Charles sort of was hinting around it too. He said he didn't have the words, but I think he was kind of hitting what I think it is. It's, you know, the totalitarian side is the Marine boots that you need to put outside the door. I think now let's also remember that this is happening in the mythical realm. Okay, it's not happening out, you know, down the street, you know, or anything. This is happening internally. So even though it's rather, it can be graphic and everything like that, it is being graphic symbolically, not graphically out here. So what is it saying symbolically? That the male conscious attitude, which is obviously completely out of sync with unconscious, okay? The unconscious could care less whether she's walking around topless. That doesn't concern it at all. What the unconscious is concerned about is we, the dream ego, are so concerned about restraining the wild feminine. Now, you know, Jung says too that our dream ego, we're only partially connected to it because we're not making up the decisions for the dream ego. The dream maker is saying what it thinks of our dream ego, what it thinks of our ego. This is what your ego does. Watch, you know, your ego goes around, way around the fence. What business is this of yours, you know, to someone who's hiding in their sanctuary, to rip them out, take them to someplace to maintain order. Now, what this means, I don't know, but Tim, these dreams have all been saying the same thing. But as far as how this applies to our here's who I think it applies to. It applies to our conscious attitude. Ouch! My hand got a cramp. It applies to our conscious attitude and its relationship with the eternal feminine or the transformational feminine. And the dream maker is saying that there is a disconnect between our waking day conscious attitude and not the feminine in the outer world, but the feminine in the inner world, the symbolic feminine. There is a disconnect between the conscious attitude in the outer world and the symbolic feminine. Now, I don't know what if there's a disconnect with the outer feminine, I don't care. But there seems to be a disconnect with the inner feminine. And what is the inner feminine? Do we know? I don't say that, I mean, right out the bat. Roy, do you have any further observations or?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment, hey, Craig, this might not just be the mythical world. We're in a dream. There could be the real world in there and the mythical world. Now, Tim and the other male figure are in the real world. The woman is in the mythical world, and they can't deal with it. So I think both worlds are in that dream. And that's very common in a lot of dreams and fairy tales. You have the real world, and then you have a mythical creature that comes in there and might takes a damsel out to the forest or something. I think you can have that in the dream, the real world and the mythical world.
Tim, what do you have to just? I mean, what are your current thoughts about this dream? I mean, just what's
Well,
going
one
through
thing
your head?
that might help the illumination is I'm actually currently working on a film about the siren song. And this one strange line, "Isn't your sister going to work?" I think might refer to a title of a painting I did of this of a siren kind of walking toward the edge of a cliff with a ship in the background. And the
I think
title
I've
is,
seen that. Haven't you shown us that before?
yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
I think I remember seeing that, but I it's been a while.
And the title is "A Siren Goes to Work." And in a way, the feminine, her work is to throw out some kind of lure to bring the masculine consciousness into that kind of right brain world of irrationality and sensuality and all of that stuff. And it very well could be that I think Roy is right. It's an inner and an outer dream at the same time.
Do you feel at all? Did you feel any like either alarm or guilt or anything by this dream or not? I mean, not it really deeply, but when I have a dream that makes me feel guilty, or I get a hexagram on the I Ching that is very disparaging of me, I have a second or two where I feel very hurt. But then after I sit a while, I know that this is medicine that I needed. What did you think about that? Do you feel that this is hurtful to the conscious attitude, or what were your thoughts when you?
No, in fact, it's very like in the crazy river woman dream. I was just sort of a bystander, and oh, that's a beautiful one. And I'm just sort of trying to be helpful, and I don't really know what the circumstance is, or anything like that.
Well, she is a siren, don't you think?
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, it's very similar to Charles seeing the Minotaur walking down the street. You're seeing a siren walk down the street. So what is a siren?
Well, particularly because she's topless, because that as a guy who spends a lot of my time drawing from nudes and often most of the time female nudes, my experience is as soon as a woman takes off her clothes, my intellect just is absolutely flummoxed. My intellect cannot do anything. It's just dumbfounded. And it's the more natural feminine part of my body that takes over and does the drawing.
I think it dissolves our rational senses.
Right.
Now,
right. So if she was walking around with her clothes on, just being a lunatic, that would be a different symbol for me.
And when that happens to me, and I mean this seriously, it's not a sense of arousal. It's just a sense of suddenly, a woman's form unclothed is not just sexual. It also represents the life force, that we as these sort of utilitarian beings, men are very separated from, and so when we see it, the word dumbfounded is a very good word. We're stunned. Okay. Now, this came up in, I don't know if you've ever heard of Finn McCool, the Irish hero. you know, when he would go out on a great hunting trip, he would get in a great berserker mood, you know, and when he came back to the city or to the village that he lived in, they knew that they couldn't let him into the city in this form. His chariot's covered with deer and bear and things, and he's just crazy. So what happened was all the women of the village would come out to greet him naked. Okay. He was stunned just so long that the men could grab him and put him in a barrel of water, and the water would instantly turn to steam and the barrel blew up. So then they'd take him out of that and put him in another barrel of water, and that one would just boil for a while. And then they'd finally take him and put him in the third bucket of water, and he would be back to normal. But the word dumbfounded is very interesting because it is, and it also seems to be a European phenomena, you know?
Well, I wanted to point out a couple of things that, you know, there's this long history of women using their bodies for protest.
Mhm.
And we saw this a couple of years ago in Ukraine or someplace in Eastern Europe, when, or maybe it was Poland, when they had this anti-abortion law that was going to be presented, and the women went out in the streets and took off their shirts to protest. Another one happened in Canada recently, you know, protests against animal cruelty. And actually in Nigeria, there's a long tradition of the women, when the men's council meets and it's not taking up some issue that they think is really important. Like this happened just a few years ago, the legislature was meeting about the oil disasters and they weren't addressing it. And so the women went to the legislature and they said, if you don't address this, we're going to take our clothes off. And all the guys just immediately went into work mode because
Yeah.
there's something very, very threatening about that.
Yeah, and what I think is threatening, and what the role of the siren is too, is that its nature and the life force protest against a world dominated with rational logos, okay, with just you know, mundane everyday thinking, unyielding resistance, justice, and you know, it's mercy and nature and the life force protest against the world of that's in disharmony from nature and the life force. Okay, it just is. You know, that world that we take so much for granted is not in harmony with nature or the life force. And so when nature and the life force come near it, it starts to dissolve and it feels threatened. That's what the sirens are going to bring in to crash against the rocks. What's going to crash against the rocks is the world that's not in harmony with nature. You know? But I think it's also a clue to your other feminine dreams too, because there is an aspect in every one of those dreams. Well, sometimes the male is in ascendancy, and sometimes the female. I mean, when you're going to the house of four women, the one form comes out and says, you're not worthy to come to this place. And that was the crazy woman who could speak and wasn't mute and wasn't incoherent. That's what this woman here would say if she was coherent. And her incoherence and the fact that she's a sister is pretty interesting too. Now, who's this from Dawn? Let's see. Okay, once a member of one of these groups, when I shared sensitive information about my troubles and experience, the person felt, as I did, that we have that we have to be concerned about the world thinks or might view our experiences, but then our experiences.
I was trying to delete that. I was trying to backspace some things because I wasn't sure if I was going to send it or not. And somehow doing this on my phone, I keep hitting, when I hit the enter, it sends it. And I
Okay.
actually hadn't decided I
Well,
wanted
that's
to send
fine.
that
Wait,
yet.
do you want us just, did you want to just say a couple words to summarize it? We won't read it.
No, because when I try to speak, I do worse than when I write.
Okay. All right. All right. That's fine. We have to be very concerned about what the world thinks or how they might view our experiences. But these experiences that I've seen as a neurosis, or I'm worried, and I didn't explain myself very well. It's if things or worse happens, a person loses their credibility instead of thinking, oh, something valuable might be happening, and let's listen. Yeah, well, I think, Dawn, this is something even Charles and I were discussing one time, is how valuable your dreams are. And you're thinking, to me, and not to, maybe they aren't valuable to you, but your dreams are very valuable to me. And so, there might be something valuable might be happening here. Let's listen. And that's why I don't really like the word neurosis or psychosis thrown around too much, because, that's like calling Rumpelstiltskin. So what? You guessed his name. Does that mean you have captured his essence? I don't know. It's just hard to say. Jung said a lot of psychologists wanted to walk around in white lab coats naming diseases, where he would walk in like a shaman, nature shaman, and somebody was having a big problem, he'd just give him a bear hug, or something. I mean, he was trying to solve this problem a little more realistically. But anyway, let's Tim, I think we might have to finish this dream next time, because I think Roy, do you have any final comments, or Charles or Ivan? You don't? How about you, Charles? Do you have any comments?
No, I've had to be on super babysitting duty in the past 10 minutes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, Tim, how about Ivan? Do you have any comments about it, or Okay. Well, I know I am not done with it, but I think I want to sleep on it. And next Monday, let's kind of review it. Tim, do you have any final thoughts?
Well, I just wanted to add, I did a dialogue with the crazy woman and the next day, and
yeah,
she was pretty mad.
Yes,
she couldn't articulate anything, but she was mad.
The anima is full of resentments. Now, the resentments are that she feels slighted by the male attitude. I mean, do you know this? I mean, this is one thing I recognize in a lot of women who are appalled at the insensitivity of male thinking. They can't. What in the hell is wrong with you? I mean, you don't get it. Or, you go and try to mansplain something to a woman, when, a woman comes to you in pain, she doesn't want you to say, well, you know what you should do? Why don't you? She wants your understanding. She doesn't want your explanation, So anyway, that is interesting. Could you next time you're here, Tim, share a little bit of that dialogue with us? Plus we'll
Sure.
try to. I think if we sleep on this, I mean, I always the next day have a little bit different feeling about it, and I know all of us will too. So why don't we think this is a very important dream, Tim, and we need to fit it in context with all your other dreams too, because it's a fabric, it's a warp and a woof, and you can't really remove it from from the other like 5 or 6 dreams that we've discussed, they're all one piece, you know, and what is that one piece? So anyway, well, thank you, everybody. And thank you, Ivan. If you would send us a couple more dreams, I'd like to, I think we need some context for the dream with the woman who's in need. And, you know, of course, Charles, maybe you could share some of your dreams that you did with Stuart, and Roy, you owe us one. So, okay. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. We'll see you next. Thank you, Tim. Thank you,
All
Ivan.
right, see you next time.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see you
Thank you
guys
all.
next time. Bye now.
Bye.